All right, guys, today we are doing lesson 2. This is relative frequency tables. So one thing I want to do is first we're going to turn to page 2 instead of page 1. Notice that I put 2.3 over here. I did that on purpose. So we're going to come back to 2.3 after we do 2.2. So let's go to the next page. So we have all of these tables and graphs. So we're looking at city cat and country cat. 200 people were asked if they prefer dogs or cats and whether they live in a rural or urban setting. The actual values collected from the survey are in the first table. So here are all of our values. Okay, so we have this next table. It shows what percentage of 200 total people included are represented by each combination of categories. The segmented bar graph represents the same information. So what that tells me is we're dividing by 200 here. And let me adjust this really quick. So our denominator on all of these is going to be 200. Okay. So how we get 27% is we take 54. I'm going to zoom in here. We're going to take 54 divided by 200. I'm going to plug it in my calculator right here and verify that's correct. And that is 0.27. Okay. I'm going to do the same thing down here for urban dog. I'm going to do 80. So I'm pulling this number right here and dividing by 200. And that is 0.4 exactly. So we just move our decimal place over and we get 40%. Let's move this over right here. So we're going to pull for our rural cat, 42 divided by 200 is 0.21, 0.21. I didn't have space over there, or I would write it like, actually, I'm going to make space. 0.27, 0.4, and then lastly we have our 24 for our dog that is rural. So 24 divided by 200 is 0.12. Okay. Our next table shows the percentage of each column that had a certain pet preference in a column relative frequency table. The segmented bar graph represents the same information graphically. So, also I want to make sure we look at our bar graph over here for our 200. So we have one bar because that is all the way up to our 100%, which would be 200. So here on this next table, so we're looking at the percentage of each column. So we're going to look at our column values here. So our total value. So our urban is going to be divided by 134. And our rural is going to be divided by 66. Okay, so that's where our numbers came from. We're going to take, so we get 40% from dividing 54 by 134. Let me do that. So 54. Verify that with my calculator. Make sure I got it right. We're going to have 0.4. It keeps going after that, but we're just going to say 0.4 for this one. Okay, so then I'm going to go back up and look and see that I got 80 for my dogs. So we're going to divide 80 by 134. And plug that into my calculator. And we're going to get 0.597. That's going to round up to be 60%. Okay, do the same thing on the right side. So for our rural table, we're dividing by 66. Our cat was 42. So 42 divided by 66. That is 0.63 repeating. It's just going to keep repeating, it looks like. It may terminate after a little bit, but it looks like it's going to keep going. And our last one for this table to look at is 24 divided by 66. And that is 0.36 repeating. And it looks like that may also terminate later on, but we're going to leave it like that. Okay? And our last table, actually one quick thing I want to do. Notice that our percentages, if I were to add them up, 40 plus 60 is 100. So this goes to 100%. So I'm going to write percentage here. Okay. And also, if I added up 64 and 36, that would also be 100%. So they're all going to add up to 100% in some way. All right, our next table, our last table, shows the percentage of each row that live in a certain area in a row relative frequency table. So now we're going to be looking at, let's see here. We're going to be looking at our total for dog being 104 and our total for cat being 96. So that's what we're dividing by. We're dividing by the number in the row. So divide by 96 and 104. That's what we're doing there. So for the cat, we had 54 for urban cat. So 54 divided by 96 is 0.5625. So 0.56. I'm just going to say that because it's going to round down because the 2 rounds down. Okay, and then for 44, I'm just looking at my values from above. So 42 divided by 96 is 0.4375. I'm going to erase my divisor over, or my denominator over here. It is 0.4375. All right, now let's do our dog urban is 80 divided by 104. Okay, and that is 0.769. So that's going to round up. We're going to erase our denominator over here. And we're going to do 24 divided by 104. And that is 0.2307. So that one's going to round down. Again, notice that our percentages, as we add them over to the right, so 56 plus 44 is going to be 100%. 77 plus 23 is also going to be 100%. Okay, on your next page, you should be able to keep this page right here flat with the page 3 open to where you can see both of them so we can answer these questions. So I'm going to pause here for a second and I'm going to bring my first page over to be right beside this one. All right, so I have both of my pages right here, so you should be able to see both of yours on your table. If you have to tear out the staple, that's fine. So for number 1, for each relative frequency table, select a percentage and explain how the numbers from the original table were used to get the percentage. So that's why I already had us walk through all of these. So we can just take 2 numbers, or one number from each table, and say this is how you get it. So I'm going to actually label these as my first table. So 1, 2, and 3. So over here we're going to write first, second, and third. So we got all of these numbers in the first one by dividing by 200. So we can just pick any of these percentages. So I'm going to pick, let's do 27% right here. So for urban cat. So 27% comes from 54 divided by 200. So 54 coming from right here, 200 being our total. Our second table, remember this tells us the percentage per column. So if we pick something in this column, we have to divide by 134. And if we pick something in this column, we have to divide by 66. So let's actually pick one from each. So let's do urban dog and a rural cat. So we get 60% comes from So it comes from 80 divided by 134. And we have 64% comes from 42 divided by 66. Okay. If we hadn't gone through and plugged that into our calculator and verified that those were how we got those, we would need to go through and figure that out. Our last table, so it's our third table down here. So we divided by, what was it we divided by? We divided by 96 on the top, and we divided by 104 on the bottom. So let's go ahead and do two of these again. Let's do urban cat and rural dog. So let me go ahead and grab that. It is 56%. So our 56% comes from that was the top one. Comes from 54 divided by 96. And our extra one to verify that we got all this down. So 23% comes from 24 divided by 104. So 23% comes from 24 divided by 104. All right, now we're going to answer these questions. What percentage of those surveyed live in an urban area and prefer dogs? So we are looking at all or total surveyed. That was 200 people. And we're looking specifically at one square. We're looking at urban dogs. So we're going to look over here. So we're looking at urban dogs, which is this one. So we're going to have 80. So we're going to say 80 divided by 200 equals 0.40 or 40%. Okay? That's all you got to do for that one. On the next one, we're going to go among the people surveyed who prefer dogs. So we're looking specifically at the people surveyed who prefer dogs. So total dogs. Okay, so total dogs is 104. Okay, what percentage of them live in an urban setting? So we're looking at our dogs in an urban setting, so we're still looking at our 80 there. So we're going to say 80 divided by 104 is 0.77. I think that was a rounded one, if I remember correctly, or 77%. Okay. What percentage of people surveyed who live in an urban setting? Let's use this one by looking at our tables. What percentage of people surveyed who live in an urban setting? So urban was our column. So let's go find our table. So our column, prefer dogs. So this one, we just picked the 60. So you can do this by either calculating, or you can go look at your tables. If we wanted to calculate this one, we would say 134 people who live in an urban setting prefer dogs would be 80. So 80 divided by 134 is 0.60 or 60%. Okay. How many people responded that they prefer dogs and live in an urban setting? That would be our original table, and that would just be 80. Not a percentage, 80 people. They prefer dogs and live in an urban setting. Okay, among the people surveyed, are there more people who prefer dogs or cats? So here we are just going to look at our columns up here. Okay, so the number for dogs, our total cats, total dogs, is bigger. So more people prefer dogs. But only by a little. Cats was 94. 96. And dogs was 104. So dogs was slightly over 50%. It was about 52% prefer dogs. I got 52% by saying 104 and divide it by 200. All right, last one. Your pet food company has access to a billboard in a rural setting. Would you recommend advertising dog food or cat food on this billboard? And which table did you use to make this decision? So we're going to look over here. We are going to look at our column for rural, because rural was on the column side. And we're going to see that 64% of rural people preferred cats. So we would advertise for cat food because 64% of people in a rural area prefer cats. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop here, and if I have time before class, I will do the next page or the first page. So we have done pages 2 and 3. I have not done this page yet. If I have time, I will get that done and get that uploaded as well. If I do not have time, work on your practice problems.